Alrighty, so we're gonna jump straight in to talk about some of the news that has happened in the past couple of days because there is a lot of news that we have to go over with. This actually is not the only board that I'll talk about in terms of the news. I actually have a second board, and when it comes to a news of the week that has a second board, that means this video is at least going to be 25 plus minutes. I'm going to try my best in terms of going over this news without making this news of the week episode being one of the longest news of the week episode, if not the longest news of the week episode I've ever done. And also, not to mention the fact that I wrote this board yesterday and I was supposed to do this video last night, but then, it was getting late and I thought, I might as well just kind of do it first thing in the morning, and that's what I'm doing right now. So first of all, the first news we're going to talk about is LAFC signing Aaron Long off of free agency. So the Aaron Long sweepstake and the Aaron Long transfer saga that we've been talking about throughout the whole offseason has finally come to a close. There's been a lot of talks of who exactly is going to win the Aaron Long sweepstake, because it's pretty clear that he's not going to be staying with the New York Red Bulls. I mean, there's that general rule with the New York Red Bulls where if you're the captain of the team, then you are most likely going to be leaving that team in 2 or less year time to join another MLS team. And in this case, it seems like Aaron Long, there was definitely rumors that he could potentially go to Europe, but he elected to stay in MLS. And I think it's definitely a case where he's probably going to be staying in MLS throughout his entire career, because unless if he started to continue to play well, maybe he can make a move to Europe in very late of his career. But it's getting to a point where that window is definitely coming to a shut, and that joining a team that is fresh off of an MLS Cup win and a team that is loaded in terms of trying to win the CONCACAF Champions League, I think this is definitely a good decision on him, and especially for LAFC with the way that, they have a lot of good depth pieces on the attack, on the defensive end, and now adding Aaron Long to there, that is definitely just, again, this is the thing about LAFC. It's almost unfair, the embarrassment of riches that they, of course, had, and that adding Aaron Long is definitely going to help them in terms of getting even more depth now in the defense end, that they already have a lot of good depth in that part of the field too. Now, they also trade away Latif Blessing to the New England Revolution in exchange for $700,000 general allocation money. I forgot to mention that they traded him to the Revs in order to do that. But yeah, this is definitely a bittersweet kind of moment, especially if you're an LAFC fan that has been supporting this team ever since they came into the league in 2018, because I think Latif Blessing might be the one of the last pieces that has been with this team since its inception. I mean, I think the only player I can remember now from this LAFC team that's been there since they came into the league in 2018 is Carlos Vela. But besides that, Latif Blessing, his role definitely has diminished as the year goes along, and that, he was a vital part of this LAFC team when they came into the league, but, with the way that they have definitely got better option in the place that Blessing is currently playing, he was definitely started to move down the depth chart, and not to mention he was started to kind of struggle as the year goes along, which is why he kind of started to lose his position, and you just kind of had a feeling he need a change of scenery. Well, what a better way for a change of scenery but by going to another MLS club, and indeed that is the case, going to the New England Revolution. And I do believe that he definitely still have a lot of potential to be a decent player. I mean, it's hard to believe that he's still relatively young as a player. I think he's now right near his prime, and even though $700,000 is definitely a lot of money, I think it's worth the money in order to of course improve this Revs team. That the Revs have made a lot of big moves, and I think this is not the only moves that they have made, as I'll talk about in this News of the Week episode. Now, moving on, in the next news, we got NYCFC signing Slovenian youth international defender, and again, anytime when it's a name that is in the Baltic state or a Slavic name, I'm going to be struggling with it. I think it's Mitja Lelinic. That's how you pronounce. Again, I'll get better as the season goes along, and as I hear how broadcaster and announcer pronounce his name correctly. But yeah, this is clearly a move that they're making, knowing the fact that there is definitely a rumor that Alexander Callens is not going to be re-signing for NYCFC. It seems like he's going to test the free agency market, and with the way that they lost him, and also potentially losing Sean Johnson to free agency too, because there's not a lot of talks of him potentially returning to the team. They need to start to maybe sign some player and kind of go for a little bit of a retool and rebuild. I mean, NYCFC is definitely in a situation where it's kind of feel like it's rebuilding and retool time, with the way that once Maxi Morales left this team, the keystone of this team, it feels like they're going through a bit of a transitional period. Now, I don't know if this player is going to be a good replacement for Alexander Callens, and NYCFC is definitely hoping that of course is the case. But one thing I know about NYCFC is that most of the signings that they've got in the past couple of years have always been a hit. They have definitely one of the best scouting department in the league, so don't be surprised he's going to be a decent option and a decent replacement for Callens. That looks like he probably is not going to be coming back for this team for this upcoming season. Now, speaking of center backs, Austin FC also got one. They signed this Finnish international center back Leo Vesenen, and from what I heard, he is definitely a decent player. And also, just like NYCFC, this is definitely a move to replace a center back that they, of course, just lost this offseason. It is now official that Ruben Gabrielsen is going to be going back to Norway. So they, of course, need to find a replacement there, and that, getting another Scandinavian defender might be a great option to do so, especially, like I said, I've heard good things about him, and he's a decent kind of player. So yeah, I think this is a good signing for Austin FC. They also signed free agent goalkeeper Matt Brizano, and that, I think it's almost given now, the fact that if you are a Quakes player, you're probably going to be moving to Austin FC and continue that kind of stereotype of the fact of just the general fact that, a lot of people that is moving to Austin is probably from California. But, yeah, this is definitely kind of a bittersweet moment as a Quakes fan, seeing Matt Brizano moving on, because he's been with the team for a long time now. Even though he hasn't really been a regular starter, he's a guy that's been with the team for a very long time, and we'll never forget what he did last year in the U.S. Open Cup against the Seattle Sounders, winning that PK shootout. And yeah, I think this is definitely sad to see that he is moving on, but this is also kind of Austin FC continue that move of trying to keep signing in Quakes players. I mean, they of course got Nick Lima, they got Danny Houston, and not to mention in terms of the goalkeeping position, they try to sign Andrew Tarbell, and that, yeah, it turns out Tarbell was not a good option, and now I feel like Austin feel like, well, you know what, since that didn't work out, let's sign the other Quakes backup goalkeeper and see how that's going to do. Although I will say that in terms of backup goalkeeper sake, between Brizano and Tarbell, Brizano is definitely better than what Tarbell has. And it's crazy too, because Brizano was the backup for Tarbell when Andrew Tarbell was still the starting goalkeeper of the Quakes for the past couple of years. But just based on the form that they have, it is pretty clear that Matt Brizano is definitely a better option than whatever Andrew Tarbell was, and that you can clearly see it when he stepped in for Brad Stewart a couple of times last season. He was definitely a goalkeeper that looked like completely out of form, and a guy that just not fit in terms of being even a backup goalkeeper in this league. Now, Atlanta United, they have recalled Tyler Wolff from his loan at Belgian side SK Beveren. Now, this is kind of interesting in the sense that, anytime when I see an MLS team decide to recall a loan move from a player that they, of course, send to Europe to go on loan, might be because they didn't, of course, work out. And I think that might be the case for Tyler Wolff. Maybe he didn't quite work out with the team, and that now he's going to be going back to Atlanta United. And again, knowing the fact that Atlanta are looking to try to add some more depth to knowing after the injury crisis that they had, I think this is definitely a good move for them. Now, speaking of depth pieces, they also decided to get rid of one of their depth pieces, and that, of course, is terminate Emerson Hyman's contract. Now, this definitely is kind of a bit of a surprise, because, Emerson Hyman, when he was with Atlanta, and ever since he signed with Atlanta United, I thought he was a decent player. But the issue with Emerson Hyman is that he's been injury prone for so long. I mean, during his short time with Atlanta, it's not just last season where he suffer a season-ending injury, along with just a pile of players that ends up on the season-ending IR for this team. But it's just the fact that he's just too injury prone, and that it's just getting to a point where it's not worth it, especially if he does take a little bit of the cap space that Atlanta United of course had. So yeah, obviously they decided to terminate his contract, but I won't be surprised Emerson Hyndman might be staying in MLS, because again, while he is definitely injury prone, I think he's definitely one of the better sixes in this league, and I won't be surprised there might be another team decide to sign him off of free agency. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now talk about some contract extension. We first got FC Cincinnati signing Alvaro Barreal to a contract extension, and for a while Barreal, it looked like his days with FC Cincinnati was about to be number a couple of years ago, because of the way that he was definitely not effective whatsoever in the wing area. It feels like he was about to be moving on from this Cincinnati team, but credit Pat Nolan and what he has done in terms of getting guys that maybe look like they're not good enough, and then decide to switch them to another position, and it turns out to work well. And that's the case for Alvaro Barreal. I think he has looked really good in terms of switching in a wingback position, and maybe that's a position that he's more comfortable in compared to when he was playing in the wing, and also at times become a substitute on the wing too, because of the way that he was not performing the way that FC Cincinnati thought that he was going to perform when they first bought him a couple years ago. Now, the Philadelphia Union have re-signed Daniel Gazdag to a new contract extension, and not only a new contract extension, but now they have officially made Daniel Gazdag a designated player, and wealthily deserved, because what Gazdag did last season was something that is simply amazing, and that he along with Carranza and Uru was really the keystone of that attack. I mean, when you score like 20 plus goal, yeah, you not only deserve a contract extension, but you definitely deserve a big pay raise. And after a career year that Daniel Gazdag definitely has, it's going to be interesting to see now that he carries that DP kind of tag, whether or not if he can continue into the second season. Because it's one thing to have a great season, but can you follow that into the second season? And I have a feeling he can definitely do so, because like I said, the Union, they're a very loaded team, especially going for on the attack, and just the style that he of course do throughout last season. I think it's going to be a big surprise if he cannot match what he did. I mean, I don't think he will score 20 plus goal again, but he will at least score 10 or 15 plus goal compared to what he did last season. Now, Charlotte FC have also re-signed defender Harrison Afful to a new contract. Now, this was a bit surprising, the fact that Harrison Afful, he definitely looked like he is starting to be near the end of his career, and that him not being on the field a lot last season maybe just shows you the fact that, yeah, it feels like his career is pretty much gonna be coming to an end, and it feels like Charlotte was not going to re-sign him, but no, they decided to re-sign him, giving another go. I mean, I guess maybe that's a good utility pieces, and maybe use as a depth pieces in terms of the fullback position, and getting depth pieces in the fullback position in this league is definitely not easy. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they decided to re-sign. I feel like they could have had a better option if they were going to look for some depth in terms of the fullback position. But there's no doubt that I think, again, like this last season, for this upcoming year, Harrison Afful is only going to be getting minutes for Charlotte if they do suffer a bit of an injury crisis in the fullback position, because again, I think he's probably going to be near the end of his career, and while he's been amazing during his time with the Columbus Crew, yeah, I think his career has started to wind down. He's getting up to that age in the mid-30s, and when you're a fullback around that age, that's usually around the age where a lot of those fullbacks are starting to think about hanging up the boots. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now talk about some of the transfer rumors that has happened. And by the way, there were some transfer rumors that actually has been made official as we speak, because again, I made this video, or no, not made this video. I wrote this board last night, and that there's some news on this board that has been made official, so I'll definitely point out to that. But there was a report suggesting that Olivier Giroud might have some interest of coming to MLS. Now, this is definitely something to keep an eye on, especially with the way that he looks like he's not going to be continue with AC Milan, and that Milan has been. He said that they may be moving on from him in the summer. could be a case where some teams might be looking to try to get Olivier Giroud, and especially with the way that Giroud is still performing at a high perform rate, even though he is near the twilight of his career and near in his mid 30s. You know, again, he's been scoring goals for club and country, especially for country. I mean, we saw what he did this year in the World Cup in Qatar, scoring I think 4 goals for France. So he can definitely still be a goal scorer. And I know there's a lot of teams in MLS are definitely interested in terms of getting a goal scorer like Olivier Giroud. And that again, if we continue to the renaissance of all these kind of player that have been well-known player in Europe to come to MLS to get either their one last paycheck or just in the prime of their career, or maybe just come here to develop, then I think there could be a case that Giroud could be coming in the summer. So it's definitely something that I think we'll be keeping an eye on. But moving on, in the next news, we got Charlotte FC report to sign Burnley midfielder Ashley Westwood. Now, what's interesting about Ashley Westwood is the fact that he's been with Burnley for a while, and that, you know, he is kind of in his mid 30s, but you know, I think that definitely would be an upgrade in terms of the midfield for the Charlotte team. The one thing I am a little concerned about him is the fact that he just came off of a major injury, and when you're in your well, not really mid 30s, but kind of approaching mid 30s as Ashley Westwood is, and when you come back with a devastating injury, yeah, that could be a little bit iffy. So we'll see whether if Charlotte decide to sign him, maybe they might have known that and they're willing to take the risk. The fact that he still can be a decent player, given his age, even coming off of a bad injury. But yeah, we shall see whether or not if this move, of course, would make. Now there is also a report suggesting that there are multiple MLS club is interest to sign Korean international Cho Gwin-sun. Now, Cho Gwin-sun, a player that I definitely discovered during the World Cup, where he was a guy that was a lethal goal scorer. I mean, I'll never forget those 2 goals that he scored against. I think it was it Brazil that he scored against. I might be wrong. I might got the wrong team there, but yeah, he is a guy that it could be a lethal goal scorer too, as it's shown in the World Cup. And we have also seen before that during the World Cup, I'm pretty sure a lot of MLS team are watching the World Cup, not only just to support on the players that are involved with, but they're watching it so that they know which players that they could potentially sign based on the performance that we've seen in the World Cup. And this is not something new, because we've seen everyone does it around the world, where when the World Cup has happened, there's a lot of scouts that is keeping an eye on which player is going to do well, and if they have a breakout kind of World Cup kind of performance, they're going to sign them during the winter transfer window. And we're already seeing a couple of it during the winter transfer window too. So again, I won't be surprised. There might be an MLS club that is looking to try and get him. And again, just like the Olivier Giroud situation, you know, there's a lot of teams that definitely need a decent number 9, and I think he along with Giroud would be a good option if teams are looking to try to get him. Now, the LA Galaxy is report to sign free agent defender Chris Mavinga. In fact, this is actually one of the news I talked about earlier, that, you know, I wrote this when it was still a rumor, but it's pretty much made official today, and that, yes, the Galaxy have signed him off a free agency, and that, I don't think that is a big surprising move, because, you know, there's one thing that is giving with the Galaxy and Greg Vanney, the fact that he's definitely going to try to bring as much of the former TFC player that he guide them to multiple winning season and guide them to an MLS Cup as possible, which is why I'm kind of surprised the fact that they decided to let go of Victor Vasquez and bring him back, even though I know a couple of years they did bring Victor Vasquez to the Galaxy, and I think that kind of really started the trend where we see a lot of these former players coming back that was part of TFC team, and now he's kind of coming to there. And I won't be surprised in a couple of years we might even have an announcement that Jonathan Osorio could be moving on to TFC and going to the Galaxy. But all kidding aside, you know, Chris Mavinga, I think this would have been a great signing if this was maybe back in 2018. But the problem with this signing is that Mavinga has definitely not been great in these past couple of seasons, and that I guess maybe this is just used as depth pieces. But again, you know, I know the Galaxy have been trying so hard to reshape their back line and trying to get get it well, as that's been a failure for the past couple of years. But I don't think signing Chris Mavinga is definitely going to solve that issue. But we'll see whether if that, of course, is going to be the case. And at least now he's united with Greg Vanney. Maybe he'll rediscover his good form that he has when Greg Vanney was still taking charge of the team a couple of years ago. Now, the New England Revolution is reported to add Nashville SC center back Dave Romney. In fact, this is also another move that has just made official, that the Revs have got Dave Romney from Nashville SC, and I think it was something like 545,000 GAM that they, of course, got for Dave Romney. I think this is definitely a good signing, because knowing the fact that New England, one of the weaknesses that they had last season is definitely on the defensive front, and knowing the fact that Dave Romney has had a really great season during his time with Nashville, and that I'm pretty sure Galaxy fans are probably regretting now that they decided to let him go to Nashville. And that, again, that's kind of the case with both LA teams. They're probably now regretting letting go of their well-known center back of joining Nashville SC. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting move, and especially with the way that Nashville, it seems like they already instantly find his replacement of signing Nick DePuy from the Galaxy. Again, I feel like that's a huge downgrade compared to them sending Dave Romney to New England and then getting Nick DePuy in the process. But for New England cases, again, this is definitely a huge upgrade for them, and that, I think he's gonna definitely be battling some playing times, especially with the way that I think Farrell and Kessler is still going to be the regular starter. But there's definitely the question about Andrew Farrell and even Henry Kessler, in terms of the fact that Romney can definitely be in the start in terms that center back partnership, or the fact that if Bruce Arena decided to go free at the back, then maybe Romney will also be included in that free at the back system. Now, the San Jose Earthquakes is report that they are going to send their striker Benji Kikanovic to move to AEK Athens for about $2 million. Now, this is definitely not a big surprise, because there's been a lot of rumors of Kikanovic potentially going to Europe, and that it seems like this is not a big surprise that he decided to join this team, because this is the team that basically Mateus Almeida is currently coaching, and that we've seen this before, where former head coach decided to move to a new job, and then they decided to bring some of his guys. Though I didn't think Benji Kikanovic was gonna be one of his guys. I thought he was maybe even gonna bring some of his guys like Eric Remedi and so forth. But yeah, for Kikanovic, I've always thought that he was a very good serviceable number 9, and that I think this is definitely gonna be a bit of a tough loss for the Quakes in terms of the depth pieces in the number 9 position. But again, for $2 million, and especially with Kikanovic wanted to go to Europe, I don't think the Quakes can really say no to this deal, and we'll see whether or not if this is going to get done. Now, the New York Red Bulls is looking to bring back Kyle Duncan on loan with a purchase option that he's currently with a Belgian club. Now, this is very strange with the way that I think this is kind of weird, with the way that they sold Kyle Duncan to a Belgian side, and then next thing you know, they decided that, we're gonna loan him back, and that we also have like a purchase option to, of course, buy him back. And if you're a Red Bulls fan, that has to kind of drive you nuts, with the way that, well, what's the point of sending him to another club only for them to, of course, buy him back and so forth? Like, why not we just keep him in the first place? And that, also, this is not something new that the Red Bulls have done. I know they've done that with Caden Clark before, where they sold him off to RB Leipzig, and only for them to say, okay, let's actually give him another season, and decide to have him join on loan for the Red Bulls. So yeah, in this case for Kyle Duncan, I think that may be the same case too. But again, with the purchase option, again, it just feels weird, the fact that why they sell him in the first place if they're gonna kind of buy him back. But it's definitely gonna be an upgrade for this team, especially in the fullback position, because I think the Red Bulls last season, you can definitely see they miss Kyle Duncan in terms of the void that he left, and now he's potentially coming back. I think that's definitely going to be good, and especially this might be another player that might not have worked out in Europe, and decided to maybe come back to MLS to develop in his career furthermore before making another another move or even stay in MLS permanently. Now, the Red Bulls have also interest to sign Belgian striker Dante Visit from Royal Union and St. Giles. Now, this club is definitely a club that I know as potentially one of the most underdog story that we have seen in European football, with the way that, this was a team that actually won the Belgium league, and this team was kind of an unknown team about a couple of years ago, but the rise that they took is just incredible. And that we've also have heard that there's a lot of players that have coming out of that club eventually decide to move on to join a European team. So in this case, with the way that the Red Bulls are able to sign another promising player from a team that has been able to produce very well-known talent, maybe this could be the answer in terms of them fixing that number 9 position, because I'm pretty sure that Patrick Lamela and Tom Barlow is not the answer for this Red Bulls team. And that, again, I think if they do sign him, he's going to go straight into that number 9 position, and they're going to hope that this is going to be the solution for them to finally replace the void that BWP left. I mean, it's hard to believe they still have not had a legitimate number 9 ever since BWP left this team back in 2018, and we'll see whether this, of course, will help. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards, because, like I said, this is not the only news that we have talked about. We're going to talk about in the news of the week. We have some more news that we're gonna talk about in this news of the week episode on the other board. So, moving on, in the next news, we got the Houston Dynamo finalizing a deal to sign left back Brad Smith. Now, just like the Chris Mavinga signing, this is also pretty close of being done. But also, like the Chris Mavinga signing, this move probably would have been great if this was back in 2018 or 2019, when Brad Smith was with the Seattle Sounders, and we know how important he was in that fullback position for the Sounders. And when he decided to join DC United, I thought many people thought that this was going to be a good move, and that DC, of course, got a very decent fullback and considered to be one of the best in the league. And it turns out that was not the case. I mean, he regressed badly during his time with DC United, and it seems like now the Houston Dynamo is looking to try to take another shot and hope that they can get the Brad Smith version of the Seattle Sounders, and not the one that he was with DC United. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, but also it's kind of a very Houston Dynamo kind of move, where, they have been kind of in a rebuild for the past couple of years, but they've also have decided to commit to get a couple of reclamation project, and that this is definitely one of the latest one there. So we'll see whether if he, of course, turns out well, or the fact that he's going to be like what he was with DC United, which is a player that was a huge liability in the fullback position of the team. Now, Montreal is among 5 MLS clubs looking to sign Independiente attacking midfielder Alan Sonora. Now, I won't be surprised that they could potentially win this race with the way that they're the only reason why he was even close in terms of being coming to CF Montreal is because of Hernan Losada. Losada and Alan Sonora, I think they have some good relationship with each other, and that he's going to try to lure him to come to his new team. And if that, of course, is the case, then yeah, we'll see whether or not if he is going to be a good replacement for Georgi Mihailovic. I mean, that's a lot to ask, certainly for this young player that, he's still a player that, many people forget that he still potentially could play for the U.S., even though, there's a sign that he could maybe even play for the Argentine national team, though I have a feeling if he is potentially going to break into the scene, probably the U.S. men's national team might be the more likely compared to the Argentina national team. But yeah, this is definitely a move that Montreal is looking to make, so that they can, of course, start to replace some of the players that they lost this offseason of those transfer move. And it's good the fact that if that is the case, because there was a lot of people and a lot of fans were very concerned about the fact that, knowing Jules Saputo is known to be cheap a little bit, and he decided to really strip this team down to the bare bone after getting a lot of profit. They're not going to use that profit to replace some of the talent that they lost this offseason, but at least they're trying to do so with some of the signings that they made so far in this offseason. Now, there is a report suggesting that Inter Miami is offering $15 million to sign Brazilian attacking midfielder Maurício from Internacional. Now, from what I heard about this guy, he's a decent player, but certainly not something that is worth like $15 million. And again, one of the things that I think Atlanta United probably would want to tell Inter Miami is that you don't want to just kind of always decided to just throw big money at some of these South American talent, because there's times where it of course hasn't worked out, and we have seen so far that there has been many teams that decided to throw big money of these young talented South American player. And while there are some that of course have worked out, I think Brenner is definitely one example of it, even though he didn't really kind of work out when he came in. We have also seen some big failure with Pity Martinez and even Ezekiel Barco. And again, even from what I heard, some people said that $15 million seems like a bit of an overpay. We'll see whether, of course, if that is the case, and especially with the way that it doesn't seem like Inter Miami is going to bring back Pozuelo back this season. They need a number 10 in that spot, and maybe they hope that he is going to be the guy that is going to be like the Pozuelo that they of course signed. I'm kind of surprised to say not to bring back Pozuelo, because while during his time with Inter Miami, he was still kind of a little bit underwhelming. I think it would have been a better option to keep him instead of just spending a big amount of money and hope that they of course sign a guy that is going to turn out to be well. Or maybe it's just because they want to get Messi in the summer, right? I mean, I'm assuming that of course maybe is what they're trying to learn, where this is maybe spending big might be a way to try to attract Lionel Messi to come to Inter Miami. But moving on, in the next news, we got the Houston Dynamo looking to finalize a deal to send midfielder Matheus Vera on loan to Argentino Juniors. Now, Matheus Vera, he's been with the Dynamo for a long time, and I always felt like he was kind of a little bit underwhelming, and he's kind of a mediocre kind of midfield for this Dynamo team. But looks like this is a chance for them to also kind of clear up some cap space that the Dynamo of course had with sending him on loan. We'll see whether if this move of course would eventually do. Now, speaking of clearing cap space and maybe even open a DP spot, Atlanta United winger Marcelino Moreno is close to finalizing a move to go back to South America and going to Brazilian side Coritiba. Now, this has been something that's been talked about throughout this offseason, besides the whole Joseph Martinez saga of what's going to happen to Marcelino Moreno, because during his time with Atlanta, again, this is another player that I mentioned before that came into MLS have a lot of potential, and Atlanta of course using the philosophy of getting hidden gems in South America, maybe kind of overpaying them a little bit and develop them eventually to a way that they can sell them off to Europe. And unfortunately for Moreno, that just never worked out. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he just didn't fit the right system. I mean, we talked about before where just because you get a talented player doesn't mean they can fit well in the system that you run. And that I can definitely see that Marcelino Moreno had some potential, but he just does not fit in this system. And that I think there was definitely sense that either they were going to buy him down of that DP deal, which they have an option to do, or they would just decide to cut their losses and sell him off to somewhere else. And in this case, it's kind of between both of the way that they decide to loan him and see how he's going to do. And I think there's also like an option to buy in terms of it. So, if he turns out to do well, then at least Atlanta would actually kind of make something. I mean, they maybe would lose some money compared to when they of course bought him in the first place, but that they'll take that considering the fact that we talk about Atlanta for the past couple of years. Well, they've been the pioneer in terms of signing these South American players, develop them, and eventually sell to Europe. More time or not, that philosophy hasn't really kind of worked out. Maybe besides the whole Miguel Almiron thing, which was kind of the exception that of course it really kind of worked out, and that's really where it was a big example. It just kind of watershed moment for the league that, hey, of course those work out. You can definitely develop some of these players from South America and eventually sell them off for a big profit. And we have also saw other example too, not just from Atlanta United. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now finally started to move away in terms of the transfer rumors and signings, because we've been spending probably the last 33 minutes talking about that. But we did have some retirement that was announced. First, Brad Knighton has announced his retirement, and actually is now going to be becoming the new head coach of the Revs U17 team. So this is definitely one of those rare situations where a longtime player in the league retire and immediately take up a head coaching role. Usually they retire and maybe in a couple of years they decide to take a head coach role. That's not the case for Brad Knighton, and it's good for him too, because I think he's been having a decent career in MLS. I mean, it's definitely not a career that's gonna wow people, but it's definitely a career that I think, he also means a lot to the Revs family and the Revs fan base. I know a lot of the Revs fan base love Brad Knighton, and it's not a big surprise he's looking to stay with the team and move into a different role, and in this case being the head coach of the Revs U17 team. Now we also have announcement in terms of retirement involving Sacha Kljestan and Christian Fuchs. Sacha Kljestan, that is definitely one that I'm definitely thinking about making a career video, and I know I haven't been doing one in a long time because I've been really backed up in terms of all these videos that I've done, but that's definitely one that I'll definitely will make a video about, because what a career Sacha Kljestan has had, from his humble beginning with Chivas USA during his time with the Red Bulls, and now officially announcing his retirement. And again, just one of the most underrated player I think in league history, and definitely deserved for me to kind of do a career video and talk about how he's been doing his entire career in MLS. And then of course Christian Fuchs announcing his retirement, and this is not a big surprise too, because Fuchs, you can definitely see last season when he joined with Charlotte, he was only joining that club mainly because they need to get a big name to really kind of excite the fan base. And Fuchs being a player that was in the centerpiece of that miraculous season that Leicester City has had a couple of years ago, that of course would be a good marketing tool to do so. Now in terms of his performance wise, yeah, that was a lot to left to be desired. And that, I don't know if I mentioned in the Charlotte FC video that I label him as the biggest disappointment, but yeah, he's definitely right up there because of the way that he looked very slow. He looked like a guy that Father Time have clearly defeated him, and he just have nothing left in the tank. And I think he did the right thing of decided to announce retirement. But like Brad Knighton, he also have said that he's going to be staying with the club and taking a role with the club in some way. So it's definitely good, the fact that he's going to be staying with Charlotte, and especially with the way that, again, I think he really bring the energy in terms of the excitement that this expansion team had. I mean, usually when a team comes to the league for the first time, there's a lot of excitement, but you need to definitely bring a well-known name to get that excitement even more. And I think Christian Fuchs definitely brought that when he was signed with Charlotte FC and become one of the first signing of this team. Now, moving on in the last news, and technically this was supposedly the last news I was going to talk about, but the last news I'm going to talk about is the fact that the U.S. men's national team will announce Anthony Hudson as the interim head coach. And of course, because of the situation that's going on with Greg Berhalter, and it seems like we have a Berhalter versus Reina kind of fiasco that is going on, that has really painted a dark note in terms of the numerous scandal that we've seen in the U.S. Soccer Federation in these past couple of years. It was pretty clear that Greg Berhalter was not going to be the head coach of this team, and especially with the way that he's already kind of out of contract, they had to of course look for alternative options. So they decided to bring in Anthony Hudson as the alternate option, and I feel like that this is kind of very similar to when I think when Bruce Arena was fired from the team, and they decided to bring in I forgot what was his name, but he was kind of almost like a yes man, and kind of like a puppet kind of interim head coach just to kind of stable things. That's kind of the same case with Anthony Hudson. He's pretty much a yes man for this federation. He never really had a good resume in terms of his coaching career, but he's only there just to kind of fill in just because of the chaos that is going on with the U.S. Soccer Federation. And I will say that at least, with how chaotic that the U.S. Soccer Federation is with this whole ongoing situation, at least this is happening after the World Cup. Like, if this was happening before the World Cup, oh boy, then this could be a huge problem. Or even if this is happening before a major tournament, this could be a huge problem. But because this is happening after the World Cup, after the U.S. probably won't have a meaningful game until they will be entering Copa America in a couple of years. I notice I left out the Gold Cup there because I think the Gold Cup is starting to become a very meaningless tournament because of the way that the U.S. are now wanted to be involving in the Copa America more than ever. Yeah, at least the good thing, the silver lining in terms of it is that at least this is happening after the World Cup. But that being said, hopefully eventually that this of course would resolve, and that I even made a video yesterday talking about how ugly the situation is, and we'll see whether or not if we're going to get a resolution of this soon, because the longer this is going to take, the more it's going to hinder in terms of really continue to develop of what is a very good crop of players that the U.S. has in the future. And not to mention in this January camp, I mean, again, usually when you see a January camp, it's kind of like camp for a lot of guys to maybe get some caps with their country, and maybe not involved in future terms. So I guess maybe that's the reason why they decided to just get a yes man in there, just to kind of patch up the messy situation that is going. And also, this is also why it maybe is a good time if there is a time where there could be a major scandal that's going on with this federation. It's better to have it after the World Cup than before we have it in the World Cup or even in a major tournament. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Like I said, this might be the longest News of the Week episode I've done because there's just so many news that I've talked about. And I'll definitely make another News of the Week episode in a couple of days, because there's also news that did happen today, but I decided not to include it because this would just make the video even longer than it should be. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this News of the Week episode? And of course, I know I'm going to say that if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, and you immediately mention some of the news that has happened today, so I won't mention it, and I'll just say that I'll talk about some of the news that happened today on that Saturday video. But in case if there's any news that is involved from Wednesday all the way back to Saturday in the last couple of days I didn't mention, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.